One exception to the almost universal failure of world governments to initiate peaceful diplomacy with ET civilizations took place in France in 2007. Then President Sarkozy's Ministry of Defense reached out to Dr. Greer to train its senior officials in the close encounters of the fifth kind protocols. During a covert test run in the French countryside, ET craft were tracked overhead going 200,000 kilometers per hour. And this massive mauve-colored craft partially materialized a few meters from the group. Since the operation was swiftly halted by national security state interests, it remains the duty of we the people to become peaceful ambassadors to the universe. Much like a denial of service cyber attack can bottleneck and bring down a computer network, millions of people initiating contact would completely overwhelm the national security state's ability to subvert disclosure.
The national security state people, and potentially working with and through the To the Stars Academy, are going to be pitching this problem. Saying, well, we can't just let our whole civilization know that there's this highly advanced, technologically superior society out there, and because our whole culture will collapse. Whereas, in fact, it's quite clear that it's their defense of the elite, this 1% of the human family that basically ends up controlling over 40% of all of the wealth on the planet that they're really defending. And it's their world that they're trying to defend. So that you see that this is a subset of a larger question about how spiritual consciousness and the evolution of consciousness, of understanding what we really are in the makeup of the universe, is a threat in itself to this elite. Because that is the dissolving away of these kind of differences among ourselves, and this coming into a full ownership of our proper place in the universe puts these people out of business as the ruling elite. And so that the raising of consciousness of our human family is so closely related to the opening onto the extraterrestrial experience that both of them together are viewed as a threat by the elite. What they're afraid of is that this is such an accelerator as people have these repeated contacts with the extraterrestrials. Their whole consciousness starts to rise. They start becoming aware of the fact that we're damaging our environment. They can become aware of the fact that nuclear weapons are kind of an insane thing to have. War is a really bad idea. This is a spiritual experience. It's a spiritual stimulation that's coming.
If you take someone from Italy and someone from Japan, very different cultures, very different people, personalities, backgrounds, emotional temperament. Now, extrapolate that out across the cosmos. Think of the vast differences there are going to be. How do we make any sense of that if we aren't anchored into something deeper? And that point of commonality has been folded within each of us. And that is, we are awake, conscious beings. They are awake, we are awake. That faculty of being aware of awareness, the consciousness, not what you're conscious of, but the means to be awake. That is a singularity. And once we're anchored into that state of consciousness, the unitive state, then there aren't any aliens. There are just other people who are a little different from us. This is the point where we can make contact most easily. When I looked at Close Encounters of the Third Kind, I said, well, somebody knows what's going on here. Because it had a lot to do with the telepathy, the sort of dreams people had that led them to the Devil's Tower in Wyoming, all this. And I then found out that Spielberg had actually had a man, J. Allen Hynek, who was the head of Project Blue Book for the Air Force, who was the chief consultant who opened up files for him so he could make that movie almost like a docudrama.
In 2011, a CE5 group at Joshua Tree National Park successfully contacted an entire flotilla of ET craft. In the unprocessed night vision footage, we see what appears to be two distinct craft. But image enhancements reveal that these are two parts of a superstructure or mothership surrounded by an entire fleet of ET vehicles. How is this possible? It is not possible to simply crowbar extraterrestrials into our traditional, relatively primitive view of reality. In order to make sense of things, and indeed, in order to make contact, we have to pause and readdress our assumptions about the very nature of reality. This is an essential reflection which reveals that the mystery of extraterrestrials is but a signpost that points to a far more profound and intimate secret, one with the power to transform us and the cosmos forever.